This is Ange Ball, baby. Tottenham 4, Everton 0. What did we learn? We're going to break that exactly down in this video today. We did a preview for this game on stream on Friday, and I think a lot of what we spoke about in that has rung true in the game yesterday. A brilliant performance from Tottenham. We saw a very different approach for Ange Postecoglou's side. We saw Maddison and Kulusevski playing in those two tens. We could smell blood with Everton, and we took them to the cleaners and put them to the sword. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm streaming this live currently right now on my YouTube channel. If you're joining this late, make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments. If you're joining me in the stream right now while we record this, then please get involved as well. It was a brilliant performance from Tottenham yesterday, just exactly what we needed after the game on Monday night. A frustrating draw against Leicester. We did see some positives, and I think we continued what we saw in a positive sense into this game today. We were just a lot more clinical. We're going to talk about Cristian Romero, Micky Van De Ven, Dejan Kulusevski. We're going to talk about Wilson Odobert's debut as well. We're going to go through all of the goals, and we're going to go through a lot more as well. Like I said, make sure to like the stream, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. And let's get into it. Let's get into it, lads, because this was fascinating in terms of how we lined up yesterday. Van de Ven and Romero at the back as those two centre-backs. It was very much kind of that 3-2 sort of 5 shape we've kind of been seeing in pre-season in terms of how we've been building up. Wingers staying very high and wide. Obviously, we saw Odobert and Johnson playing on the flanks yesterday. You'll be able to see Johnson in that screenshot there, hugging the right touchline. Porro picking up some fascinating positions. This was a screenshot actually taken from Rob Daly, who is the club's commentator yesterday, who put this out yesterday. It gives you a fascinating insight into how Ange Postecoglou wants to set this team up. This was the team kind of more on paper. Obviously, we saw Sonny playing down the middle. Solanke missed the game with that knock. I think a lot of us probably going into it were maybe a little bit worried about Son in this game playing through the middle. I think many of us thought it was going to be Richarlison or Dejan Kulusevski potentially, someone who's a bit more physical, a bit more combative, but Everton were incredibly weak and Tottenham massively exploited that. As again here, if you can see from how we kind of built up yesterday, it was absolutely fascinating with those two high inverted fullbacks. But also, if you go to the average positions here, you can see what Tottenham did really well, but you can see exactly how they exploited Everton's narrow formation and narrow, compact defensive shape. Tottenham here, again, kind of building up in that similar way that we expect. Yves Bissouma right in the middle of that. We'll talk about Yves Bissouma as well. Obviously, he had a very good game yesterday. He's still got a lot to prove. Maddison and Kulusevski playing as those two tens. Kulusevski far more advanced, almost hugging that right touchline at times as well. Sonny's role I thought was fascinating yesterday as well, and we're going to come on and talk about that. He played a lot more deep. Honestly, he was kind of in his Harry Kane arc yesterday, Son Heung-min, the way he was dropping deep, linking up play. I definitely think we saw that a lot more from him than we have previously when he played as a striker. And I think that fluidity that we saw with Tottenham yesterday, Everton just couldn't handle it. Could not handle it. But if you look at Everton's kind of average positions, very narrow and very, very compact. And I think the way that Spurs set up massively exploited that. I think that's why Wilson Odobert came into the team. I think Ange Postecoglou knew they were going to set up in this way. And I think the width and that trickery on that side of Odobert massively helped us kind of exploit their narrow block, because we were coming into this game talking about how we thought Everton would set up. And I remember kind of showing you something a little bit like this, where you'd have the fullback who we thought was going to be Holgate. It was obviously Dixon who came in and played. I actually thought he did okay against Wilson Odobert, to be fair. And we'll talk about Odobert's performance in more detail shortly. But Everton, like we said, we knew they were going to do this. We knew they were going to kind of try and box it off in the middle and let Tottenham go out wide. But when you've got a winger in Wilson Odobert now who actually wants to take on their man and beat them 1v1, that did not play into Everton's hand at all. And you can sort of see that almost shape that we knew Everton would go into reflected a little bit there yesterday. Very narrow, very, very compact. And Tottenham were able to exploit that really, really well. So how exactly did Tottenham do that? Travis Levison says the first win of the Bowman era. Exactly. Other than pre-season, we can talk about. I was a bit worried after the Leicester game. After kind of doing these streams, I was like, I want to talk about a win. I want to come in and talk about a win, and we didn't just get a win. We got an emphatic one yesterday. Eddie, thank you, mate. I appreciate that. Hope you enjoyed yesterday. Maddison and Kulusevski in the middle needs to be played more. So this is how we saw. That was a comment there in the chat there from Aruz. I think, like I said, I think Ange almost. If we kind of go back to this with Maddison and Kulusevski kind of playing as those advanced number 10s, I think Ange kind of smelt a bit of blood with Everton. We knew they were a bit fragile, obviously defensive injuries. We knew that we needed to be more clinical than we were on Monday, and I think kind of putting those. And I said it before the game, like even if you forget tactically, right? Obviously, this is how we're going to break that game down, but as a fan going into that game, I think we kind of needed that feeling of having a bit of a lift, because obviously we knew we weren't getting Solanke, his home debut. Obviously we knew that he was injured after the game against Leicester on Monday. I feel like the fan base just almost needed that bit of a lift, and I think that's what we got from Odobert, and that's what we got from this very gung-ho attacking lineup. I thought Yves Bissouma obviously had a lot to do in that number 6 position on his own. Obviously, Tottenham dominated the ball. He didn't have too much defensive work to do, but we'll talk about Bissouma in a bit more detail yesterday. But there was a lot of responsibility on him with those 2 number 10s. Obviously, Spurs dominated in the first half, 75% possession and 66% in the second half. And we knew that with the profiles that Everton have got in that midfield, if we just go back to this, we knew that it could have been a physical game, and that's why I would have gone with Bissouma maybe over Gray, and that's very much, it's not really what we saw. It wasn't very combative and wasn't very physical, but I think Bissouma's presence in there really kind of helped us open the door in terms of that low block, because he was able to just give the ball quickly to those 2 creative forces in front of him and then just sweep up anything that he needed to do. Again, with Everton, and we'll talk about Van De Ven shortly as well, the only real threat that they potentially posed was maybe those balls into the channels. Obviously, they were sat very compact, trying to negate that creativity from Spurs, sit in a very low block and just soak up pressure. But when you get an early goal like we did with Bissouma, kind of that does go out the window a little bit. The only attacking threat they really had was those balls into Calvert-Lewin down the channels. But when you've got someone like Micky Van De Ven at centre-back who's just going to mop those up with his pace, and we'll talk about that a bit later on, it just negates the only real threat that Everton actually had in the game. But yeah, in terms of player by player, in terms of a player-by-player perspective in this game, I want to focus on Cristian Romero, who I thought was fantastic yesterday. I want to focus on Micky Van De Ven. I want to focus on Wilson Odobert, obviously Yves Bissouma too, and Dejan Kulusevski, who I thought were kind of the standouts. I thought some other players went a little bit under the radar yesterday. I thought James Maddison again kind of showed that level that we saw from him on Monday. I thought he continued nicely into this game. Obviously, he got an assist from the set piece for Cristian Romero, but I just think again we saw a performance that was much more like what we expect from James Maddison. 79 minutes, accumulated 0.41 XG, 1 assist, 54 out of 62 passes completed, 2 big chances created, 2 accurate crosses, 2 out of 2 long balls successful, won about half his duels, made 3 recoveries, 2 blocks and 4 clearances as well. So again, tucking in. Again, if you go back to this screenshot here, in terms of how we build up, he was often playing a lot more deeper than Kulusevski alongside Bissouma in there, and he did his defensive work well, like I highlighted in those numbers. I thought Pedro Porro as well, again, had a quietly very good game. I thought there were some outstanding performances yesterday. I don't think anybody really maybe had a poor game, other than potentially Brennan Johnson, who we'll come on and talk about. And I don't really want to focus on the negatives too much, but I just think, again, we kind of saw that almost like lack of confidence from him again. But I thought Pedro Porro had a very quietly good game. I played the whole 90 minutes, 99 touches, incredibly influential, 51 accurate passes, 9 passes into the final third, 5 ground duels, 4 accurate long balls. Again, that long ball yesterday from deep, whether it was Bissouma, Romero or Porro, was something we were able to use to very good effect yesterday, I thought. 2 tackles, 1, 2 blocks, 2 fouls, 1 chance created and 1 interception as well. And again, if you go back to this, you see him almost playing as that second striker. And I think Son's role in all of this allowed that creative hub in Maddison, Kulusevski, Porro and a doggy behind him to kind of thrive, because he was allowing them so much space with him dropping a lot deeper. Again, if we just go back to these average positions quite quickly, I think that was kind of the deepest that we'd almost seen Sonny drop as a striker playing for us for a long, long time. And allowing those runners in behind him, in those with the wide men in Kulusevski, Johnson and Odobert as well. So yes, I thought it was a very, very good performance yesterday. I want to before we get into the goals, I want to talk about Sonny's role, and I also want to talk about Cristian Romero in terms of that ball progression, and Wilson Odobert as well, right? So if we just bring this across here, I feel like every time we see one of these ball progression graphs, whether it's passing the ball or carrying the ball, Cristian Romero, if I just move this down here actually, so you can actually see that a bit better. I feel like Cristian Romero is always kind of at the top, in the top right-hand corner of one of these graphs. Insane ball progression stats in terms of his passing, but also in terms of his ball carrying. And again, if you kind of, I want to touch on this passing network as well that we saw. We also saw Son Heung-Min very much in the centre of that, kind of playing that more kind of creative role. yesterday, which I thought actually suited him quite well, dragging those Everton defenders forward and kind of exploiting the space in behind. I think, yeah, Son's kind of position. We know that Spurs kind of want to play. We know that Spurs kind of want to exploit that space in between the fullbacks and centre backs in those inverted positions with the fullbacks. And I think Son's positioning in terms of dropping deeper and kind of being that link man also helped us kind of create those overloads and was a lot more connective than we've maybe seen him as a number 9 before, when you see him just kind of get between the width of the goalposts and just convert the chances. But I thought these two kind of graphics were very telling yesterday. With Odobert and Romero specifically. And I want to talk about, let's start with Cristian Romero, because he had a very good game from a defensive point of view. I thought he was absolutely immense and deserved his goal. Again here, sometimes Everton, when they were able to get forward, they had a little period after we went 2-0 up where they threatened a little bit, but nothing too serious. But every time Everton got in behind, Romero just mopped it up. And again here, you talk about the progression. If you see Maddison just out the pitch, just at the top of the screen here, you know, who did that kind of remind you of? In terms of, we almost talk about Romero and Van De Ven as kind of this modern day Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen. And I think with Van De Ven's assist yesterday and Romero's ball playing ability, I think that was the closest performance we've kind of seen to those two, almost being that kind of modern day Toby and Jan. And you saw Maddison kind of playing the Dele Alli role here a little bit as well. And I think Maddison, where he was dropping deeper, again, if we kind of go back to these average positions, like I said, Maddison was definitely playing a deeper role, kind of that deep line playmaker yesterday. I thought that left-hand side, this little triangle of a doggy, Odobert and Maddison, was really, really good, really encouraging and exciting for Spurs. But what it did do with Maddison kind of playing that deeper role is that when he did venture forward, because Everton maybe weren't expecting it so much, he was able to make these later runs from deep and almost do what Dele Alli used to do for Tottenham and get in behind. We saw this twice yesterday. And Romero just lands the ball on a sixpence there. If I just hide my camera for a sec. And Maddison, you know, on another day converts that chance. It's obviously unlucky. It's good goalkeeping from Pickford. And again here, when Everton do pose that threat over the top and in behind, Romero just so calm there to kind of sweep it up. And again here, if I just hide the camera, quick free kick, perfect ball over the top again for Maddison, and on another day converts that chance. So again, like I said, that ball progression from Romero yesterday was absolutely superb, and he played a massive part in Tottenham's victory. He had 118 touches, created one big chance, 90 out of 96 accurate passes. He won 10 out of 17 duels, made 6 tackles and made 3 clearances. So it was a very dominant display from Cristian Romero at the back. But let's get into the goals then, because my word, it was just I don't know if you guys feel this sometimes. Yesterday just felt like a proper day of being back at Tottenham, scoring 4 good goals. Obviously, the second one was a bit fortunate in terms of Pickford's mistake. Scoring from a set piece, scoring a really well-worked first goal, a banger from outside the box. It just felt like, okay, we're back. We are back. And we played some lovely, lovely football to go alongside it. Matthew Capola says early season. Just go to the chat quickly. Matthew Capola says early season last year, Maddison did the same. Feel like he wasn't doing it as much after injury. You're actually right. I remember the Bournemouth game. I think it was our 3rd game of the season. He scored that goal from kind of making that run from deep with Sarr playing that pass. So you're right. Sports Lover says Romero will be an unbelievable 6. I think again in terms of on the ball, 100%. In terms of you look at his ball progression stats, and again his ability to break up play, 100%. I just don't like the idea of breaking up Romero and Van De Ven. Anyway, let's get to this first goal. Lovely combination play between Johnson and Kulusevski. Again, I thought Johnson was probably the weakest out of the forwards yesterday, maybe the weakest player. I don't think he had a terrible game. I just think that everyone else was so on fire. I think that's kind of distorted people's perception of him a little bit. Even though, yeah, he was poor, he wasn't great. Nice little ball into Kulusevski. That Kulusevski little back heel flick back into his man has become something of a trademark for him, hasn't it? So creative. And again, that's why I was so surprised when Kulusevski didn't play on Monday against Leicester, because I think he's kind of in this almost like flow state where everything's working for him right now. And I've got a couple of other examples of Kulusevski individually to kind of show you and go through. Johnson gets it there. What I love about Maddison here is that he doesn't take time playing the pass, just fizzes that ball straight back into the feet of Kulusevski, who again here, people call Kulusevski predictable, right? Everyone says that he's only left foot, all left foot. He just makes the defender dive in and make that challenge there, commits him. He's like a little twinkle toes in the box. And I think for someone who's so big and has kind of the frame that he does, I don't think people expect him to be as composed on the ball in these tight situations as he is. And I've got a couple more examples to show later, like I said. But again, jinx in and out. And they said this on Match of the Day last night. It's just the perfect weight of passing to Bissouma, who just rockets it into the top corner off the bar. Such a beautiful goal. And I think that was just that statement that we needed to say, okay, right, let's all forget about Monday. We're back. Really good goal. Bissouma was the man that probably needed that the most. Again, it was his first goal for Tottenham. And after everything that he's kind of been through, or I say been through, kind of everything he's almost put the club through, really. Don't get me wrong, I'm not feeling sorry for Yves Bissouma, but it was a very good performance from him yesterday. But he definitely needed that. And obviously we saw him celebrating and apologising to the fans, then run into Postecoglou after the game, after the goal as well. Interesting quote from Ange on Bissouma after the game where he said, Biss was good, and we know Biss is a good footballer. It's about him being the best version of himself, and he will only get there. As we've spoken about a few times, discipline is a big thing for him, and I thought it was a disciplined performance for him today. You know, not just the goal he scored, but he had a really important job for us. He knew they'd sort of play fairly direct, and he had to be up there to mop up second balls and intercept things, and he was clean for the most part in possession. So good performance, and it very much was a good performance from Bissouma. And then I wanted to come on and talk about him now, actually, while we're talking about him, because I think there's a few really good examples of what he did really well yesterday. He obviously got the goal, 73 out of 79 passes completed, didn't waste the ball at all, 10 passes into the final third, again, very progressive with it, 5 out of 7 accurate long balls, which is something I want to focus on here. Wasn't dispossessed once, won both of his tackles, again, didn't really have anything to do massively defensively, but he mopped up things when he was required. 1 clearance, 1 interception, won 2 out of the 3 ground duels, and didn't commit a single foul. Like Ange said, it was a very disciplined performance from him. Again, if you're talking about progression on the ball, what you want from that number 6 is kind of those line-breaking passes, especially when you're kind of playing against a mid or low block, like Everton was setting up in yesterday. Lovely ball through the lines into Maddison. Again, those diagonal balls out to the winger to kind of isolate the fullback. We'll talk about Odobert very shortly. Again here, just everything was so perfect in terms of his weight of pass. Like here, ball forward into Johnson. This was frustrating for Brennan Johnson. That little clip ball over the top was just perfectly weighted. With Johnson here, let me just hide the camera so you can see that full picture a little bit better. I feel like with Brennan Johnson, he's just acting kind of on instinct there when you can be a little bit more composed. It's like, okay, I'm in this position. What I usually feel like I need to do is get those low drill crosses in, but there's no one there. You know, if he can just take that bit more time, stand up his fullback. Odobert isn't there at the back post, or is certainly not there in a position to receive the ball and make something of it. So that was frustrating with Johnson yesterday. It just feels like with that lack of confidence, he's kind of almost reverting to like, what are the basics of everything that I need to do and being asked to do, and what is my role as a winger in this team? When actually, he's got 2 men there that he could maybe stand up and win a penalty or go past him, or even just win a corner, which is better for Spurs in terms of retaining that pressure, which is something that I've spoken about massively with Spurs. I think that's one of the reasons why we're so vulnerable sometimes defensively, is because we're not able to retain pressure in the final third. But again, like I said, when you go back to that possession yesterday and the meaningful possession that we did have and how we were camped in their half, I think that's something we actually did do really well yesterday. But Bissouma kind of is this deep blind playmaker. I thought was really good. Again here, good example of him breaking up play, just getting his body in front of it. Again here, that interception in behind Decore and allowing Spurs to play on the front foot. That goes into Kulusevski, who shifted it to Son. Again here, spraying balls for fun. He was absolutely superb when it comes to that ball progression from deep. Again here, actually, you can't see that. Lovely ball out to Johnson. Again, Johnson just miscontrols that touch. Again here, I think it was on Bunham. Just reads that so well. Plays that little 1-2 with Kulusevski, and straight away that ball into the feet of Odobert, one-touch passing. I thought Bissouma, it was a really good performance from him. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. I just think with Bissouma, like Ange said, it's just about consistency and it's just about mentality. Because again, if he plays every game, and look, you can't expect Bissouma to play that well every single week, right? But you need to see at least a 7 out of 10, and I think that's what your number 6 needs to be. I know Rodri and Rice have set the kind of the standards so high in terms of that position, but if you can get this kind of level of performance from Bissouma every week, you're absolutely laughing, and it means that Spurs maybe don't need to look into that position in terms of going into the market. But yeah, he was. Yeah, I thought he was very, very good yesterday. Emperor Von Donut says Biss can really play well like yesterday, but at the same time, I think he is best in a double pivot as the 8 alongside a Rodri type 6. I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right. Andrew Brownman says Bentancur versus Biss as a starter when both fit and disciplined. It's really tough, man. I think it's kind of horses for courses. But I think, again, if you're Bissouma, Bissouma's, like I said, he was in there to break up play a few times when he was kind of called upon. But I think yesterday it was more just about on the ball, and he can be that deep line playmaker that we kind of saw Bentancur do, or sort of fulfill that role against Leicester on Monday. So I was kind of more impressed with that. With Pro says, everyone says Biss had a good game, but you miss all the missed passes and lazy touches. I think first 10, 15 minutes, there was a few sloppy moments from him, which he really didn't need. And the crowd kind of got on his back a little bit. There were kind of those groans. But after that goal, I thought it was absolutely superb. Matthew Coppola says it there. It's motivation and confidence with Biss. When he plays like he has something to prove, he is class. And again, I think after that goal, it just gave him that confidence. And after that, he was fantastic. He was absolutely brilliant. But like we said, it's about consistency with him. It is. But let's move on. And talk about, let's go back to the second goal, because there's not really much to break down from it, except for, England's number one having an absolute mare in Jordan Pickford. But good pressing from Sonny from the front. You're always going to get that with him as that number 9. Hard work. I just feel like this has been coming for years with Pickford. Like, this has been coming. Oh, sorry, I've just gone back to the start there. Sorry, you had to watch the first goal again now. I apologise for that. I just feel like this has been coming for years. Like he sails so close to the wind and lives so dangerously kind of in these situations. But Sonny nabbed it off him there to get that goal. So really well done to him. And obviously slots it away. He got asked after the game, he was like, do you ever get nervous about whether you're going to miss those situations, the open goals? And he just said, Ben, I'm Sonny. He didn't say it to me, he said it to Ben Haynes. But obviously the third goal as well, let's rattle through the goals quickly, because I've got a lot of other stuff I want to talk about. And again, there's not much you can break down from certainly this goal anyway. Let me just move this. Maddison with the corner. I thought, one thing I noticed against Leicester on Monday, I thought our attacking set pieces actually improved quite a lot. But in this game, I was so surprised when we scored from this, because there were so many situations where we looked to overload that near post. I think anyone that was at the game or watched the game would agree with me. Where we overloaded that near post and then we just sent the ball to the far post for no one, like 2 or 3 times. But good delivery from Maddison. And Romero there just rises and goes and attacks it. That's what you want. Goes and attacks it. And bang into the back of the net. But Micky Van De Ven. Micky Van De Ven absolutely stole the show with this moment yesterday. I put a video about this goal on TikTok, right? And I had a lot of people, mainly Arsenal fans, kind of coming at me and saying, well, all he's done is run in a straight line. Lads, if you can't enjoy your centre-back running the length of the pitch to assist a goal for Son Heung-min, or for anyone for that matter, then the game's gone. We might as well pack up and go home, because there's not many other centre-backs that can do what Micky Van De Ven did here. Just that stride. And I think any other centre-back here will just play that ball into Son Heung-min and say, you do the running. You're the winger. You're quick. That you get us up the pitch. But Micky Van De Ven says, nah. See you later. Afterburners very much on. Sorry, apologies. You can't actually see Micky there. And it's just the fact that he doesn't really break stride. It's just like it's so that kind of determination to get all the way up the pitch. And he knows what he wants to do. And it's the perfect way to pass him for Sonny. And actually, it's a very good finish. It's a very good finish from Sonny. But for Micky, I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable. Like I said, there's not many other centre-backs in the Premier League or in European football that can do something like that. And like I said, if you can't enjoy that, and if you want to just sit here that all he's done is and say that all he's done is run in a straight line and anyone could do that up the pitch, let's just pack up and go home, because it was a brilliant goal. And that he's just a cheat code. He's just an absolute cheat code. No one else is capable of doing this. Certainly not in the Tottenham team. Certainly maybe not in the Premier League from a centre-back's perspective. And I want to talk about Van De Ven as well from a defensive point of view, because I alluded to this earlier when I was talking about Everton's threat. The only kind of threat that they posed at any point really in the game, or tried to, especially in the second half when they were kind of, or even in the first half when they were under pressure, were those kind of balls in behind over the top. There is literally no point in just playing the ball down the channel for your striker when Micky Van De Ven is on the pitch. Apologies, I lost it there. Ball down the line. He just sweeps that up so easily. I could have put in 3 or 4 more examples of this, but it's just, there is no point. There is no point with Micky Van De Ven trying to send your centre forward running into the channel when you've got a defender like that is just able to sweep things up like he did. A superb display. Him and Romero, like I said yesterday, both, I think, absolutely faultless. Again, with their ball progression, again, Van De Ven, in terms of his passing through progression out from the back, I thought was really, really good. And again, if we go just back here to this kind of Ange ball style build-up one more time before we move on and talk about Dejan Kulusevski and Wilson Odobert, my word. Again, when you've got him that's able to kind of just feed those balls into the channel to Odobert or break the lines with his passing, Romero, kind of those balls over the top and those line-breaking passes into midfield, we're a really good team, man. We are a really, really good team, and I think we saw that yesterday. It's just about kind of ironing out these little mistakes throughout the course of the season. We will be up there challenging for top 4, no doubt. Emperor Von Donut says Van De Ven would be an elite wing-back hugging the touchline. I agree, but I also don't think it gets the best out of him. Matthew Coppola says once he started the run, looked like half the Everton team just gave up. Knew they had no shot of catching him. Yeah, I agree with that. So, yeah, just ridiculous from Van De Ven. But let's talk about Wilson Odobert, because he was just I thought it was fantastic. A very, very bright debut. Again, wasn't able to beat his man every single time, but I think that threat. And again, in terms of exploiting Everton's narrow, compact back line with having a winger there that wants to take his man on 1v1, that's something we talked about before the game. We predicted that Odobert would start, that he would chuck him in. I thought he'd play on the right-hand side with Kulusevski through the middle, but it went for him on the left, and it worked absolutely brilliantly. He registered the most dribbles and produced the most touches in the opposition box of any player during the game, with 7 for both. He also contested more duels than any other Spurs player during his debut and won the joint most with 6 out of 14. He was electric, and like I said before, even if you take the tactical aspect out of it, I feel like as a fan base we kind of needed that bit of excitement. We needed that lift from having him start. Just someone who's going to make something happen out of nothing. Just someone who is so electric in the way that he plays. Someone to get the crowd off their feet, and you could feel this kind of almost like palpable sense of. This kind of palpable sense of excitement, gets fans off their seats. He's that kind of winger, and I thought he was really, really encouraging. I thought this kind of little triangle of Maddison, Udogie, and Odobert was really exciting down that left hand side yesterday. Again, here, what I love about this is that when he plays that ball into Maddison, he moves with it. He looks to go beyond that fullback there in Dixon. Here. Able to receive it, and just he's got that space to jink inside. But this is what I wanted to talk about. Again, Spurs creating these overloads down this right-hand side, or in this kind of right pocket with Kulusevski and Johnson and also Porro there. And Son dropping that little bit deeper, dragging the centre-backs and that right-back in towards him. Left so much space for Odobert on this right-hand side, meaning that Bissouma and Romero, I think this is actually from Romero's pass, that really flat, lovely chip ball to him. And again here, he wants to run at the fullback, and he sees Maddison go beyond him and just lays it off nicely. Just, again, you're just able to kind of create these situations where you're able to give him a lot of space to run at the fullback, and he likes that step over to go outside. Again here, that little step over to get past Harrison into Maddison's feet there. He goes beyond him, and again, if he can just get his head up, you've got Johnson there to kind of score that typical Brennan Johnson goal in there at the back post. If again we kind of sit from this angle, that lovely jink and step over the give and go with Maddison. He does pick the wrong pass. He tries to cut it back. I think if he gets his head up there, he sees Johnson there for a tap-in. But again, these are all little things that can kind of be ironed out, that decision-making. But he's getting himself into those positions. He's winning corners. He's committing men. I thought it was a really encouraging display from him. Again, standing up Dixon here again there. He's got that step over, that threat to go inside and out. Dixon actually makes a good tackle on him there. I thought he had a pretty good game. Bearing in mind, he's the most inexperienced player on the pitch, Dixon. But the fact that he's got Dixon to dive in there, it's a good tackle. But it shows that he's committing men and forcing that Everton backline back, which is something that we desperately need. Desperately need in a winger. There was a quote from Ange Postecoglou where he talked about Wilson Odobert after the game. He said he was, I believe he said he was excited, and said that he's essentially what we've kind of been missing as a winger. If you compare him to kind of all our other wingers, 9 times out of 10, I think that first touch is always progressive. And it, like I said, it doesn't always come off. He didn't beat his man every single time yesterday, but he's looking to face him up and take him on, play on the front foot, which is what we've massively been missing. From those wide areas. I think we've got too many players in players like Werner that just want to run in straight lines, And I think that's what Odobert doesn't do. So I think he'd be a massive threat on either side. And I think when Solanke comes back into the team, where he's got someone to hang those balls up to from the right-hand side, he's got the pace to get in behind like Johnson, but he's also got the trickery to stand the full-back up 1v1 and dink those crosses in. I think his threat is actually even more pronounced maybe from the right-hand side. Again, Bissouma able to spread the play there. One thing I was really impressed with Odobert was how clean his first touch was and how smooth kind of every action was. Again, wants to face up Dixon there. He gets him into a position here. He drifts in back from the touchline. Dixon comes with him, and he's got that burst of pace just to get to the byline, and he wins a corner there. Again, Son Heung-Min. I talked about Sonny's role in terms of playing deeper and almost being that playmaker. Look, if you go back to, if I just hide myself here, you can see Kulusevski takes up the striker position there. We talked about Maddison making those runs from deep. He's kind of playing as that furthest forward player. Porro there. That movement here, and I go back to this. That movement and fluidity that we saw from Tottenham yesterday. There is a clear structure there in terms of the way we want to build up and the way we want to play. But there is so much room for freedom within that, and I absolutely love that. Again, you talk about this box in midfield and from the centre-backs. You've got Van De Ven and Romero there, and Maddison and Bissouma. You've got that other extension of that box further up the pitch with Kulusevski and Udogie, that four-man kind of midfield, that box in there. So much room for kind of freedom within a structure, which is really exciting. Again, Sonny dropping deep. Lovely spray ball to him. And again, look, nothing really comes of this one. I think Dixon even makes the tackle. But look there, you've got four players in Maddison, Kulusevski, Johnson and Porro there kind of arriving at the back post. There is so much threat whenever Odobert gets the ball because Everton was so narrow and they're just allowing him the space to kind of run at the fullback. It was a really exciting kind of display from him. I think he dropped off a little bit in the second half. I think he looks a bit tired, if I'm being honest. But again, here, this is what we kind of want to see from him when he's playing on this left-hand side, that little give and go with Maddison and that ability to then run past him. And again here, decent cross into the box, but it doesn't come to anything. But I thought it was a really kind of encouraging display from Wilson Odobert and someone to be really, really excited about. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. It's going to be very interesting to see how we kind of set up at Newcastle. I don't see him playing Sonny down the middle there if Solanke's not back fit. But we shall see. Max there says Kulu now owns the right-hand side number 8. I think what's nice about this, and again, I'm going to come back to this again. If I just, I'm just going to move myself up here so you can actually see all the players, including Johnson. What's nice about this is that I think there have been many times where Spurs fans have called for Ange to go aggressive and go gung-ho against lower size lower down the table that will sit in deep against us and kind of play with those two number 10s. He's done it. He showed the bravery to do it. And I think now that's kind of a blueprint that shows that we can break down these low blocks and how we can do it, especially against sides that aren't going to hurt us too much on transition. In Everton, we were just too good for them yesterday. But yeah, you mentioned about Kulusevski. I thought Kulusevski was quietly very, very good yesterday, playing in that right-hand side of number 8. There were a few moments here, like what I loved about it, and if maybe we can if we go back to the average positions, we can kind of see it. What Kulusevski's presence brings you, and when he does play in that right-hand side of number 8 or further up the pitch as a number 10, he will still naturally want to drift out into those wide areas anyway, because he feels comfortable over there, and that's kind of his job. His job is to kind of link up with Johnson there, and they can dovetail. What I saw again, I don't think it was the best performance from Johnson yesterday in terms of his execution, but I think he actually played his role pretty well in terms of that combination play with him and Kulusevski. Here, Kulusevski picks the ball up from deep, carries it forward. This little nutmeg is just filth to get away from Mykolenko. Carries forward, and what I want to talk about with him and Johnson, if I maybe move myself, maybe over here. If I move myself, maybe over here. Picks the ball up, carries it out to that right touchline, and Johnson's kind of got the awareness and anticipation to make that dart inside, and Kulusevski's able to play it into him. Johnson is in space there, and nothing really comes of it. But more often than not, if you're able to kind of create those overloads in transition where Johnson is able to kind of make that run in between the centre-back and the full-back and get into those channels where he can be quite effective, it just shows how effective Kulusevski can kind of be playing in that right-hand side of number 8 role. Look, again, very forward, almost playing further forward than Johnson, and playing very wide as well, drifting out there. I thought he was. If we look at his heat map, again, in terms of the kind of ground that he covered, he did like to hug that touchline as well. but I thought he was very, very good yesterday. And again, if you look at Sonny's heat map, it kind of illustrates what we were saying before, almost playing as that kind of false nine almost, and allowing the players in front of him to do the business. But Sonny yesterday, there's a really good display from him in terms of his pressing and his finishing, obviously, for that second goal as well. Again, a lot of people are writing him off, but in the way that we play and the amount of chances that we create, Sonny's still going to get 20 goals in this system. I genuinely do believe that. But it was a really encouraging performance from Tottenham yesterday. Like I said, I think Everton were poor. They were. That was maybe one of the most toothless sides I've kind of come I've seen at White Hart Lane in recent times, and I do kind of worry about them going down. And I'm sure their fans probably are as well. But I think their narrow kind of compact block yesterday, Spurs were able to exploit that really well. So hats off to Ange Postecoglou for the way he set the team up, the way he was bold with his selection. So yeah, thought it was really encouraging and very, very good from Spurs. Let me know your thoughts in the chat and in the comments as well. I think that's where we're going to leave the stream for today. It was a really encouraging performance from Tottenham yesterday. And I think it's kind of set the blueprint for how we should play. I think Archie Parker's just said it there. We should only play like this against lower quality teams. But I think it's kind of set that blueprint for how we should set up against these teams that want to sit in and make it difficult for us. So make sure to like the stream if you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like the video as well if you're watching it after. Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments in terms of how you think maybe we could learn from this and set up against Newcastle as well. Your thoughts kind of going into that game. I'm going to go and watch the rest of the football this Sunday. We're going to record the Fighting Cock in a little bit as well. So make sure to listen to that when it comes out. Just before I end, Matthew Coppola's made a very good point actually on Kulusevski. And if we kind of go back to the goal, I just don't want to ignore that because it's a very good point. Sorry, I know I said I was going to end, but if we go to here, what Matthew said was Kulu just draws 2 or 3 players when he has the ball and it opens up so much. He has to start against low blocks. I totally agree, mate. I totally agree. But yeah, really enjoyed that, guys. I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. Bank holiday as well tomorrow. Hope you make the most of that and enjoy it. And up the Spurs. Come on, Spurs.